The Vatican guards found them hidden behind a false wall in the papal apartments. Scrolls that should never have existed. Letters that proved the Holy Father wasn't holy at all. What they discovered would shake the Catholic Church to its core. In the next 15 minutes, you're going to learn about the most scandalous cover-up in Vatican history. Evidence that medieval historians tried to burn. Documents that prove one pope lived a double life so depraved it makes modern scandals look tame. And here's what makes this even more disturbing. Everything I'm about to tell you comes from the Vatican's own secret archives, records they kept hidden for 600 years, until one historian broke the rules and exposed the truth. Rome, 1410. The most powerful man in Christianity is dying. Pope Alexander V lies in his bed, clutching his chest. Poison, the physicians whisper. But who would dare murder the Pope? As his body grows cold, his successor moves quickly, too quickly. Pope John XXIII orders the papal apartments sealed. No one enters without his permission. He claims he's protecting the late Pope's dignity. He's actually protecting himself, because hidden in those rooms is evidence of a secret life. A life of mistresses and illegitimate children, of bribery and murder, of a man who wore the papal crown while living like a demon. But before we expose what those scrolls contained, you need to understand how a man like this became Pope in the first place. The year is 1370. A baby is born in Naples to a family of minor nobility. They name him Baldassare Cossa. From his first breath, he's not destined for holiness. He's destined for power. His father is a pirate, not metaphorically, literally a pirate who raids merchant ships in the Mediterranean. Young Baldassare learns early that rules are for other people. That power comes from fear, that the church is the greatest con game ever invented, and he wants in. The rise of a monster. By age 20, Baldassare has a plan. The church isn't about faith, it's about money and power, and he's going to climb to the top. He studies law at the University of Bologna, not because he cares about justice, because he needs to understand how the system works before he can exploit it. His professors note something disturbing about young Cossa. He's brilliant, charming even, but there's something missing behind his eyes, something human. He graduates with honors and immediately enters church service. His first position is as a papal legate, basically a church diplomat and tax collector. This is where the real Baldassare emerges. Contemporary accounts describe his methods as unusually cruel. He doesn't just collect taxes, he extorts them. Families who can't pay watch their homes burned. Merchants who resist find themselves accused of heresy. Women who catch his eye have two choices: submit or watch their husbands imprisoned. One account from a Bologna merchant describes Cossa's visit to his home. The merchant's wife was known for her beauty. Cossa demanded she entertain him privately. When the merchant refused, Cossa had him arrested for tax evasion. The wife was forced to buy her husband's freedom. The price wasn't money. This wasn't an isolated incident. This was Cossa's standard operating procedure. But here's the sick part. The church loved him. Why? Because he was incredibly effective at raising money. He sent more gold to Rome than any other legate. The Vatican didn't ask how he got it. They just counted the coins. By 1402, Cossa is made cardinal. By 1410, he's elected Pope John XXIII. Wait, you might be thinking, wasn't there a Pope John XXIII in the 1960s? Yes, because the Catholic Church officially erased this John XXIII from history. They pretend he never existed. When Angelo Roncalli became Pope in 1958, he deliberately took the name John XXIII. The Church's way of saying the first one doesn't count, but he did exist. And what he did was so horrific that even the medieval church couldn't stomach it. The secret life begins. The moment Cossa becomes Pope, he transforms the Vatican into his personal pleasure palace. He's 40 years old, supposedly celibate, supposedly devoted to God. Instead, he's running what amounts to a brothel in the papal apartments. The scrolls discovered after his death detail everything. Lists of women brought to the Vatican, payments made to their families for silence, records of illegitimate children born and hidden. One scroll, written in Cossa's own hand, lists 200 women by name. Next to each name, a date and a payment amount. These weren't affairs. This was systematic exploitation. Young women from noble families promised positions at court, servants' daughters who couldn't refuse, even nuns from nearby convents. The Pope was supposed to be Christ's representative on earth. Instead, he was preying on anyone he could access. But the sexual depravity was just the beginning. Another set of scrolls details something even darker: financial records showing massive embezzlement. Casa was selling church positions to the highest bidder. Want to be a bishop? That'll cost you 10,000 florins. Cardinal? 50,000. He sold indulgences, promising forgiveness of sins for cash. He taxed everything. Baptisms, marriages, funerals. Even the sacraments had a price tag. One particularly disturbing entry shows Casa selling a license to sin. For 100 florins, a wealthy merchant could buy permission to commit any sin for 1 year. Murder, adultery, theft, all forgiven in advance, as long as you paid. This is the man wearing the papal crown. This is the Holy Father, the Council of Constance. By 1414, even medieval Europe has had enough. The church is in chaos. There are actually 3 different popes, all claiming legitimacy. The Western Schism, they call it. Christian kings demand a council to sort it out. The Council of Constance convenes. Hundreds of bishops, cardinals, and theologians gather. Their mission: determine who the real pope is. Pope John XXIII attends, confident he'll be confirmed. He's wrong. The council begins investigating all 3 papal claimants, and when they look into John XXIII's background, they find the scrolls. Not all of them. Casa had hidden the worst evidence, but they find enough. The charges brought against Pope John XXIII are staggering. Simony, selling church offices. Fornication, breaking his vow of celibacy. Adultery with married women. Incest with his brother's wife. Sodomy with young men in his service. Murder of his predecessor, Pope Alexander V. Piracy, continuing his family business while Pope. The council hears testimony from dozens of witnesses. A nun describes being summoned to the papal apartments. She thought she was being honored. Instead, she was assaulted. When she tried to report it, her convent was threatened with closure. A young cardinal testifies about being propositioned by the Pope. When he refused, his career was destroyed. A physician presents evidence that Pope Alexander V was poisoned. The poison came from Casa's personal supply. The motive? Alexander was about to expose Casa's corruption. Day after day, the testimony continues, each witness adding another layer to the horror. This isn't just a bad pope. This is a criminal enterprise wearing a papal tiara. The hidden scrolls revealed, but the council doesn't have the smoking gun. The really damning evidence is still hidden. Casa has been careful. The worst scrolls are locked away in a secret compartment, behind a false wall in his private chapel. Only he knows they exist. Then one of his own servants betrays him. A young man named Pietro had served Casa for years. He'd seen everything. The women brought in at night. The bribes exchanged in private. The casual cruelty. Pietro had stayed silent out of fear. But watching the council proceedings, something breaks inside him. He approaches the investigators privately. There's more, he tells them. Much more. He leads them to the papal apartments, to the private chapel. He shows them the hidden compartment. Inside, they find scrolls that make the previous charges look mild. Detailed records of every crime, every woman, every bribe, every murder. Casa had kept receipts for everything. Why? Probably as insurance. Blackmail material if anyone turned against him. Instead, it became the evidence that destroyed him. One scroll details the murder of Pope Alexander V. Not just that it happened, but how. The poison used, the dosage, the timeline of symptoms. Casa had documented his own crime like a scientist recording an experiment. Another scroll lists payments to assassins, rivals who mysteriously died, bishops who opposed him, found dead in their beds, cardinals who disappeared during travel, all connected to payments from Casa's personal funds. But the most disturbing scrolls are the personal ones. Letters to his mistresses, not love letters. These are cold, transactional. You will come to my chambers tonight. Your silence is worth 50 florins. If you speak of this, your family will suffer. One letter to a woman who'd borne his child is chilling. She's asking for support for their son. Casa's response: the child is not my concern. If you persist in this claim, arrangements will be made. 3 weeks later, the woman died. Officially, it was fever. The scrolls suggest otherwise. The fall. When the Council of Constance sees these documents, the verdict is immediate. Pope John XXIII is deposed, stripped of all titles, excommunicated. He's not just removed from office, he's erased from church history. The church declares his papacy invalid. Every decree he issued, nullified. Every appointment he made, void. It's as if he never existed. Casa tries to flee. He disguises himself as a merchant and runs, but he's captured in Germany, brought back in chains. The man who wore the papal crown is imprisoned like a common criminal. He spends 3 years in prison. 3 years to think about what he'd done. Contemporary accounts say he showed no remorse. Even in prison, he tried to bribe guards. He attempted to arrange murders of his accusers. He never stopped being who he was, a predator in papal robes. The cover-up. Here's where the story takes its final dark turn. The church had a problem. They'd just proven that a pope could be a monster, that the Holy Father could be unholy. This was dangerous. If one pope could be evil, what about the others? If the church could be wrong about this, what else were they wrong about? So they made a decision. Bury it. All of it. The scrolls were sealed in the Vatican Secret Archives. Access forbidden. The official records were rewritten. Pope John XXIII became anti-Pope John XXIII. Not a real pope, just a pretender. The church pretended the whole thing was a political dispute, not a moral catastrophe. They minimized the charges. Administrative irregularities, they called it. Not rape, murder, and corruption. For 600 years, this worked. The scrolls stayed hidden. The truth stayed buried. Until 1881, a German historian named Johann Döllinger gained access to the Vatican archives. He was researching the Western Schism. He found the scrolls, and he published them. The church tried to suppress his work. They claimed he'd misinterpreted the documents, that he was exaggerating. But other historians verified his findings. The scrolls were real. The crimes were real. The cover-up was real. Pope John XXIII died in 1419. He was 70 years old. He'd been released from prison after paying a massive ransom. He lived his final years in Florence, still wealthy, still unrepentant. His tomb in the Florence Baptistery is beautiful, marble and gold. It doesn't mention that he was deposed. It doesn't mention the crimes. It just says John XXIII, Pope. Even in death, the lie continues. But the scrolls tell the truth. They prove that absolute power corrupts absolutely. That even the church, claiming divine authority, can be infiltrated by evil. That monsters don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they wear crowns. Sometimes they wear papal tiaras. The hidden scrolls exposed more than one pope's secret life. They exposed the church's willingness to hide the truth, to protect the institution over the victims, to rewrite history rather than face it. 200 women exploited, dozens murdered, countless lives destroyed, all by a man who claimed to represent God on earth. And when the truth came out, the church's first instinct wasn't justice. It was cover-up. That's the real scandal. Not that one pope was evil, but that the church chose silence over truth, chose reputation over accountability, chose power over victims. The scrolls are still in the Vatican archives. You can request to see them, but you'll need special permission, and you'll need to read medieval Latin, and you'll need a strong stomach. Because what's written there is proof that the worst monsters in history weren't always the ones we remember. Sometimes they were the ones we were taught to revere. Pope John XXIII proved that a title doesn't make you holy, that power without accountability creates predators, that institutions will always protect themselves first. The hidden scrolls exposed his secret life, but they also exposed something darker. The willingness of good people to look away, to make excuses, to protect the institution rather than the innocent. That's the real horror. Not one evil pope, but a system that enabled him, protected him, and then tried to erase him from history rather than learn from him. The scrolls survived, the truth survived, and now you know what the church tried to hide for 600 years. If this hidden history shocked you, you need to watch my video on the medieval child bride forced to marry at 6 years old. Another story the history books tried to sanitize. Drop a comment below. Did you know about anti-Pope John XXIII before this video? Subscribe for more suppressed historical truths that your teachers definitely didn't cover. And remember, the darkest secrets aren't always in fiction. Sometimes they're hidden in scrolls behind false walls, waiting for someone brave enough to expose them.